Welcome back to 13C. Today we're going to take a look at some rail options from Troy Industries. There are a myriad of different rail options on the market today for the AKs, and these two options from Troy are some pretty solid contenders. What I have here is the top rail cover. It replaces the gas tube on most AK47s and AK74s. You would remove your old gas tube and put this one in. It's a very simple, very straightforward process. Because of the variance in manufacturers and countries of origins, some of these have a little bit of difference as far as exactly how long that tube is. So what Troy did was they came up with a system right here where you actually can rotate this, turn it in and out to lengthen and shorten this portion here, which lets you be able to bridge the gaps and some of the variances between AKs. And then they also put a castle nut on it here so you can actually lock that down so that it won't rotate out under fire and under recoil. It locks up very smoothly and gives you a nice flat rail surface here with some nice 1913 top cover. It also sits low enough on the rifle that you can access your iron sights without any problem whatsoever. The bottom rail here, which we'll talk about a little more greater detail later, is one of the things that I like about it is the fact that it's rounded and has a kind of lower profile. It's not really blocky, and aesthetically looks quite pleasing on the rifle. Gives a good firm hand grip, lets you wrap around it. Somewhat similar to, some guys use a C-clamp. You guys notice I use kind of this sort of modified type of C-clamp, generally speaking. I mean, there's a lot of different holds. Each one has a valid purpose for what it is, and we won't get into that here. But this facilitates a use of that if one were so inclined. I'm going to try and get in some heat testing later as best I can. It's about, I think it's about 33, 34 degrees out here right now, so it will be what it'll be, but I think you'll be able to see a little bit about how quickly some of this stuff heats up, and even with the radiant heat, how well, if you have a quality rail and quality gas tube here cover, how well they can kind of mitigate some of those heat issues to a point, obviously. Real quick, one of the other features I note on here is it's very smooth. Everything on here is set up in such a way, let me take my glove off. It's set up in such a way that it's smooth and channeled in here very nicely. The back, rather than just being this blocky thing that sticks out, it's very smooth here. And it mates very well, and you're not catching and dragging your hands on anything. These are rubber squid grips on here, I believe they're called, and you can actually cut these to fit, so you know you don't have to leave them in their configuration like this. You could trim one each individually if you'd like. But they fill these holes, and these are nice and smoothed out. As you run your hands on these, there's no rough edges or anything else. The machine work on here, they did an excellent job of keeping those nice and smooth, so even if you're running without any of these little rubber grips on them, and you're running bare hands without any gloves, this actually still does a really good job of treating your hands well. Because of the numerous different countries AKs are manufactured in, the differences between manufacturers, the differences in some of the trunnion styles, Bulgarian versus Romanian, Soviet, you get into a lot of different slight variations there. There's no real mil spec when it comes, you know, like ARs have, when it comes to the AK platform. So when mounting this bottom rail, I actually have two screws in the back here, and I'll put in a picture here if I can, that allow for fitment to keep the rail from shifting once it's mounted here on the rifle in the rear. Helps lock it up nice and tight. I fitted it onto 3 different AKs, plus this one. So an SAR-1, an SAR-2, as well as Inner Arms 74 that I have, M74, and of course this Waffen Werks that you see it on right now. And there's some differences in them insofar as the way the rail came from the factory with those 2 screws in the back. It actually went into those 3 other rifles just fine. When it came to this Waffen Werks here, I actually had to remove one of those back screws because where the receiver and trunnion area is there, it's just a little different on this one, and I had to actually take one of those out to get it to fit on here. Now it still locks up nice and solid with just that 1 screw back in there. And again, those screws are just for fitment purposes only, but I just want to give you guys a heads up here, depending on what AK you're looking at putting this on, on, you'll want to check and make sure that it will fit on the one that you have now. Now this top cover fits on virtually any AK-47 and 74 out there. You know, you get into a mini Draco type of thing, you know it won't fit on one of those. You can check down below in the links and head on over to 13cgunreviews.com or 13c.us, and I'll try and have some more information in a blog post there. And when I write the article for this, which will be in a few days, this entire device here mounts by sliding on here, fitting down into the bottom. As you can tell, it mates up very nicely here at the bottom, and then it uses this retaining portion that's part of the sling mount here to actually lock down. So of course you have to remove this top cover to get to that, to put that on and off. There's also a portion that translates in here, as I was mentioning those differences between AKs. Again, when it came to this Waffen Werks, that length is definitely different than the other three. The SR1 and 2 were virtually identical, you know, which is kind of to be expected. Or maybe not, depending if you're familiar with them. I have two very excellent examples of those, by the way, that are been basically flawless, and I've owned those for maybe 15 years now, probably coming up on. Obviously, depending on when it was imported, how it was manufactured. I'm getting off topic here though. You can check back at the site some of my other thoughts on some of the various AK brands out there. But anyway, you'll see that there's a portion in here that translates, and you use a hex screw to move in and out, kind of back and forth, to make sure that this locks up nice and tight and there's no movement and play back and forth between those differences in manufacturers. I found by the time I got to this one, it was the fourth one I put it on, actually opening, translating that back and forth when it was off of the rifle was easier than putting it on here and then trying to mess with it down in those grooves and work around the barrel and stuff. So what I did, I put it on, figured out about how much it needed to go, took it off, expanded it that much, put it back on. One last test, it needed to be tweaked just ever so slightly. I took it off, tweaked it again, put it on here, cinched it down, and as you can tell, it is rock solid. It's not moving side to side or translating back and forth. It is on here very well, and that's something that I do like. It's not necessarily dependent on a top cover or anything else, which is pretty nice. And the top here is a standalone portion, so you can get these two individually if you like. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the accessories for this rifle, including lighting mounts and grips and whatnot on it. We'll move to a better spot, so hopefully I can demonstrate some of those and pick some of those off a table or something. If you're looking to mount accessories onto your rifle, probably the single most important thing to put on any fighting rifle, at least, would be a light. So Troy has a number of different rail attachments to be able to accomplish that. This is an Enforce light on here I have right now, and this is one of their short rail segments. I think it's their shortest rail segment. It's meant actually listed on their site for a grip. And being low profile, for example, if you were to put this is a Stumpy Magpul MOE grip, that would take up it'd be very minimalist as far as for mounting that to it, which would be nice. I find that for the Enforce, it takes up just enough real estate that it goes on there, locks up just right, and doesn't really mess with the rest of the rail. They also sell other rail segments that are longer. You can mount those onto the bottom side wherever you want, anywhere where these holes are, and use those as well for mounting various other grips, angle grips, grip stop, whatever you like. I haven't decided exactly which one I want to put on here right now, so just for the purposes of demonstrating out here today, I'm just going to run it like it is, straight from the factory here. Of course, the top comes with standard 1913 Picatinny top. You mount whatever kind of optic you want on it. If you've seen some of the other AKs that I run, you know I run basically in a type of scout position here. Something right about there. This is an old Spark I have laying around. Just put on there for purposes. I'm not sure exactly what optic's going to ride on this rifle now that it has this top cover on here, but we'll figure that out eventually. Further videos probably. The only other note that I have on this, well, for the long rail, I'll talk about that real quick. I don't have one of the long rails, but I kind of wanted this rail for this rifle. That's why I got the short one. The long rail would not work on this rifle. It has this AK74 style brake on it, as well as the larger thread pattern adapter for it. So that large rail would not, the circumference of the diameter would just not fit over this properly to actually mount on here. So keep that in mind if you're going to order the long one. That's why I put the short one on here. Do you actually need the extra real estate of the longer rail to come out? I think it comes out to about here. And then over the top here as well, it adds some rail on top. I think it's user preference. Personally, I really like the way it looks on this 74, the way it is. I could definitely see some different options for going with the longer one, but that's just what I've decided with today. One other thing I like to note is where the sling mount winds up. It winds up in a position where you really can't use it right there. I pretty much use QD on most of my rifles anyway now at this point, so it's not like I have one of those that I'd be using anyway. I would probably wind up taking a Dremel tool to that, taking off this little out jut right here. Like I said, it's pretty flush, but if you're familiar with shooting AKs and you get them hot a lot, you know you really don't want your hand contacting that. So if you're running yourself further out here, your rifle heats up. That's going to be the first thing on here to heat up that you're going to notice that you're going to contact with the fleshier part of your hand. So that's probably why I'll take that down. Otherwise, I actually wouldn't mind seeing Troy come out with some sort of cover or something just to put a little, kind of like these Squid grips are, some of that rubber or something to go over that, just to keep your hand from contacting that when it heats up quite a bit. All right, guys, so we're gonna run a real quick heat test on this. Our starting temperature here is, actually the temperature's dropping. It says it's 31 degrees, 31 and a half, same 30 and a half, 28.5 on our front sight block there. So I guess our air temperature then would probably be about 27, 28 degrees right now. Obviously, it's not 80, 90 degrees out here today, but I just want to show you guys a little bit about what we're talking about here. And then in the spring or summer, maybe I'll come back and revisit this a little bit, but keep in mind that these guns will heat up really quickly. Yes, the cold will help dissipate the heat faster than hotter temperatures. However, when you're talking about dumping this volume of rounds through it, well, you'll see. Ooh. Well, that's unfortunate. So much for our Waffen Werks here, huh? Oh wow, that guy's wedged in there pretty well. There we go. That's gonna slow down the test a little bit. All right, so rather than 30, that was probably 26 or 27. Good God. I'm off today. I'm gonna back up a little bit here. You guys are actually missing some of the sparks. All right, well, this is getting a little warmer. Let's check it out here. So the receiver itself is still 33 degrees back here. This part of the receiver, 35, starting to warm up. Top gas block now, 350 degrees-ish. We're bouncing all over. On the top of the glass block, this top rail, in contrast, right now is running, here, see if you guys can see this. So we're running 70s, 80s, 100. And of course, you get to this front block and we're up to about 300 mark when we land right on it. Almost. Or the barrel itself is 330s. The gas block itself is 210-ish. Muzzle brake, 315. No idea how well you can actually see those. And the rail right here, 67 degrees, 68 degrees, 69. It's doing pretty well. Should probably take my glove off, show you guys. One of the things, check that little block out right there where the sling is. It's kind of hard to tell. That does warm up faster, and it's still touchable, but it's hard to get a good read on it. 120s, just because the beam on this isn't that tight, but you can still see the rail. 73 degrees is starting to warm up a little bit, with or without these Squid brakes on it. Top rail, check it out again here. Top of that rail is still running in the 80s. Upper 70s, 80s, all the way down the length of it. Look at that front block still. We're still running on it 150-ish, 130, 150, depending on where we're hitting here. The barrel, of course, is still cooling down now, but we're still in the 240 range. You can see that. And then that brake, still over 200. So hopefully I'll give you guys a good idea here on just what you can kind of expect out of this. And as you can tell, I'm still holding it. Some of that radiant heat is going to radiate. But if you check it out right now, we're still in the 70s on this. So, and the screw here as well, these two screws right here, not hot. Of course, our receiver is still moved up a little bit, 50s. But you look up here at the block, warms up a little bit, about close to 100 right back there. 120s, dropping down again. So there you go. Final thoughts on the rail itself here for today. I do enjoy it. I like it. I think it looks really well. I think it gives it a cool look. It's functional and it's nice and smooth. Like I said, these holes here, they're smoothed in very nicely. There's nothing to catch or snag or cut yourself on, which is nice. Same thing with our top cover here. Even if you're gonna, and I just finished that test, so even if you're gonna run with a modified seat clamp over the top, some sort, even with this thing heating up, it's still very nice. So, and it's not bad. You guys, one last shot at this right here. We're still 150s on that, on our gas tube right there, but the rail itself, 75 degrees. And of course, our receiver is still sitting, receiver actually in the very back of it is 33 degrees. So, something to keep in mind there. We'll revisit that in the summer, more than likely, just because I'm sure there'll be some questions about that. If you guys have any questions about this or anything else you've seen here on the channel, you can find us at Facebook. We're facebook.com/gun reviews. We're also on Instagram. We are at 13C Gun Reviews. And of course, 13cgunreviews.com, or the shortened link 13c.us is a great place to find us as well. That's kind of the hub, and we have some different articles and stuff on there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you have a happy holiday and be safe. For the AK platform, there are a myriad of different rail options on the market today, and these two are come on guys, I'm trying to do a video here. Seriously? You know, if it was legal to shoot you guys with an AK right now, you'd be in trouble. Again,